I never thought my life would lead me to a point where I'd have to make the choice I did. Perhaps I should have anticipated it, but when family surrounds you, it can be difficult to overlook the warning signs. It's funny how you can live under the same roof with someone for so long and still not truly know them. It all started when I moved back in with my mom. Yeah, you read that right, back in with my mom. And trust me, it wasn't my first choice. I'm in my 30s, well into my adult life. And yet here I was, back in the same house I'd grown up in, on the same couch I'd crashed on during high school. What can I say? Life hadn't exactly gone the way I'd planned. I'd been through a tough breakup that drained my savings, my spirit, and my sense of self. And after I lost my job last year, I found myself with no place to go and no prospects. So what choice did I have? The idea of moving back in with mom sounded humiliating at first, but the reality was less of a personal failure and more of a practical solution. Besides, my mom had always been one to open the door when things got tough. At least, that's what I thought. I pulled up to the house on a Tuesday evening, the last rays of sunset hanging low in the sky, casting long shadows over the driveway. The place looked the same as it had when I left. Same old brick exterior, the fading welcome mat at the front door, the overgrown bushes that my mom kept meaning to trim. But the air felt different this time. There was an undercurrent, something that wasn't there before. When I walked inside, Mom was sitting in her favorite chair in the living room, a cup of tea in hand. She smiled, but it was a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It made me uneasy, like there was something she wasn't saying. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, her voice light. But I could tell there was something else behind the question, something hidden, waiting to come out. "It was fine," I replied, trying to sound upbeat. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She kept glancing over her shoulder at the door like she was expecting someone. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, my voice finally giving away my concern. "You seem different." Her smile faltered just for a second, but it was enough for me to notice. "Oh, nothing. I've just been busy." I didn't push it. After all, she wasn't a woman who liked to share too much, and I wasn't about to pry. But as the days went on, things started to feel even more off. The house wasn't quite the same anymore. There were odd noises at night, things that weren't there before. And then, there was the fact that my mom was acting distant, like she wasn't really here, even when she was. She'd spend hours on the phone in her room, talking in hushed tones, sometimes with a look of worry that I'd never seen on her face. One evening after dinner when I was doing the dishes, I overheard part of a conversation. My mom was on the phone again, speaking in a low voice, but this time it wasn't a casual chat. She was arguing with someone. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was sharp, heated. It was enough to make me stop what I was doing and just stand there, listening, waiting for a clue as to what was going on. "Don't bring her into this," my mom said, voice trembling. "She doesn't need to know about any of this. Just leave it alone." That's when I realized she was keeping something from me, something important, something that wasn't just affecting her, but me too. I'd always known my mom to be independent and strong-willed. She never relied on anyone, not even me. But now, it felt like I was living in a house full of secrets. And that's when the first real crack in our relationship started to form. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind outside seemed amplified. I kept tossing and turning, wondering what had changed, what my mom wasn't telling me. The next day, when she was out running errands, I decided to go through some of her old papers. I didn't want to, didn't really think I should, but I had to know. I had to understand what was going on, why my mom was acting the way she was. I found a stack of letters in a drawer, unopened. They were from a lawyer, some name I didn't recognize. My heart skipped a beat as I picked one up, carefully peeling open the envelope. The contents hit me like a punch to the stomach. It was a letter about an estate, but not my mom's estate, someone else's, someone who had passed away. I flipped through more letters, piecing it together as my mind raced. The estate wasn't hers. It was his, the man she had been seeing, someone I didn't even know existed. And then everything clicked, the phone calls, the secrecy, the way she had been avoiding talking to me. It was all connected. But the real bombshell was yet to come. The truth was, she wasn't just hiding the details about a relationship. She was hiding him. The truth hit me like a freight train, and the worst part was I didn't even know what to do with it. My mom, my rock, had been hiding a man from me. A man who had been a part of her life in ways I hadn't imagined. And that wasn't all. The papers I'd found weren't just about an estate. They were about a will that named my mom as the sole beneficiary. Suddenly I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff looking down at a bottomless abyss. My whole reality felt like it was slipping away. I needed to talk to her. There was no way around it. I couldn't keep ignoring the elephant in the room. So, when she came home that evening, I was waiting. I didn't even know what I was going to say at first, just that I had to confront her. She walked through the door with that same tired smile on her face. But the moment she saw me standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, she froze. "Is everything okay, honey?" she asked, but there was a tremor in her voice. I took a deep breath, holding up the stack of letters I had found. "What's this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why didn't you tell me about him? Why the secrecy, Mom?" Her face drained of color. For a second, I thought she might crumble. She started, but her voice cracked. She took a step back, her eyes darting toward the door like she wanted to run. "I had to find out from his lawyer's letter, Mom. What's going on? Why didn't you tell me about him?" I pressed. My heart was pounding in my chest, a mix of anger and hurt bubbling up in my throat. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sank into the nearest chair, her hands trembling as she held onto the arms. The silence stretched on, suffocating, until she finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "His name was Peter. He was someone I met a few years ago. I never meant for you to find out like this." I could feel my blood pressure rising. "Why didn't you tell me? You've been so secretive. Why keep him hidden from me?" She paused, the weight of what she was about to say clearly weighing on her. She looked up at me, her eyes full of regret. "It wasn't like that, honey. Peter was... I don't even know how to explain it. He was complicated. Our relationship was complicated. But I didn't want to bring him into your life. He didn't deserve to be part of the family drama." "Family drama?" I laughed bitterly, stepping back. "What drama, Mom? What could possibly be worse than the fact that you've been hiding this man from me for years? And now you're telling me you've been named in his will, that he's dead and you're his sole heir. What the hell is going on?" Her eyes filled with tears and she looked away, ashamed. "Peter was sick. He had a long battle with cancer and I was with him until the end. He didn't have anyone else. His family, well, they weren't involved. He left everything to me because at the end I was the only one who stood by him. I didn't want you to know because it might hurt you. I didn't want to add to everything else you've been dealing with." The room felt like it was closing in on me. The weight of her confession hung heavy, but there was something else gnawing at me. "But what about his family? What about his life? Why wasn't I supposed to know him? You were the only one who knew, and now I'm hearing this for the first time after he's gone?" My mom looked down at her hands. "I didn't know how to tell you. You were already struggling so much. I didn't want to bring more chaos into your life. And then, when he passed, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know how to explain it to you." I shook my head, my mind spinning with the pieces of the puzzle. "So what now? What does this mean for us? Does this mean everything is going to change?" Mom's shoulders slumped and she let out a long, shaky sigh. "I don't know yet. The estate is complicated. There are things I need to figure out, but I promise I will tell you everything. Just give me some time." There it was, the thing I had been fearing all along. This wasn't just about a secret relationship. It was about money, property, and power. It was about things I didn't understand and things I wasn't prepared to deal with. But I couldn't ignore the bigger question. Why had she waited until now to tell me? Why had she let me live in this fog, thinking everything was normal, when in reality there was so much more happening beneath the surface? The tension between us grew thicker, and I knew then that nothing would be the same. We weren't just dealing with a hidden relationship anymore. We were dealing with something that could change everything, and that was just the beginning. The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. My mom was more distant than ever, hiding behind her own walls. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was about trivial things: grocery lists, doctor appointments, the weather. It was like we were two strangers living under the same roof. But something had shifted in me. I couldn't just let it go. I couldn't pretend like everything was fine when I knew there were still so many unanswered questions. One afternoon, I decided to do some digging of my own. I went through the rest of the papers from Peter's estate, trying to piece together what had really happened. There were tax documents, bank statements, property deeds, and more letters from the lawyer. Each one revealed a little more, but nothing that fully explained what had led to Peter's decision to leave everything to my mom. That's when I found something else. Something that made my blood run cold. In one of the letters, Peter's lawyer mentioned something about a secret clause in the will. Something about the inheritance being conditional. My mind raced. Was this it? Was this the piece that could unravel everything? I had to confront her again, but this time I was ready. I wasn't going to let her hide behind her lies anymore. I couldn't stop myself. The need to know, to understand, to untangle the web of secrets my mom had been hiding, it consumed me. The more I dug, the more it felt like I was peeling back layers of a life I had no idea existed. And each new discovery made it harder to look at my mom the same way. Peter's estate wasn't just about money and property. It was about control, and that was something I wasn't willing to ignore. The condition in the will that I'd uncovered, something about the inheritance being tied to an agreement that my mom had made with Peter, sent a chill through me. It didn't make sense. Why was there a secret clause? Why was everything so complicated? I had to talk to her. This couldn't go on. That evening, after dinner, I found her sitting in the same spot in the living room, staring out the window like she was trying to escape. The room felt colder than usual, the silence between us heavy. I couldn't wait anymore. "Mom, I found something," I said, my voice tight with a mix of frustration and fear. She didn't turn around at first, but after a long pause, she exhaled slowly and looked at me, her face pale. "What did you find?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "In Peter's will," I said, holding up the papers I'd taken from the desk. "There's a clause, something about the inheritance being conditional, and you never told me about it. Why? What did you have to promise him to get all of this?" Her face hardened, and for a moment I thought she might deny it. But then, she just sat there, her hands gripping the arms of the chair like she was bracing for something. "He made me promise," she said softly, barely above a whisper. "He made me promise that I would never tell you about him, about us. That's the condition. If I didn't keep the secret, I wouldn't get anything." I felt my heart race. "What are you talking about? Why? Why would you agree to something like that?" She shook her head, her eyes darting around the room like she was trying to gather the strength to say the words. "Peter was complicated. He had a lot of issues, and when he was sick, he made me promise to keep things quiet. It wasn't just about money or even love. It was about him wanting to control the narrative of his life, even after death. I couldn't understand. The pieces didn't fit. But you promised him? You promised to lie to me for this? For what? What was the real reason?" She was quiet for a moment, her eyes focused on the floor. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled with a mixture of guilt and fear. "Peter had a daughter I never met. She's a part of the will too, and I promised him that I would make sure she didn't know about me or about any of this. That's the real reason. If she found out that I was involved, if she knew I was the one who was getting everything, it would have destroyed everything. For both of us." The revelation hit me like a slap in the face. There was more to this than I could have ever imagined. A daughter. Peter had a daughter, and my mom had kept this secret for years. A whole other life that I had no idea about, and I was standing in the middle of it now, completely unprepared. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" I demanded, my voice rising with disbelief. "Why keep it a secret? Why drag me into this mess? I didn't want you to have to carry this burden," she said, her voice barely audible. "You've already been through so much, and I didn't want to drag you into something that could tear everything apart. I thought it was better to keep it quiet, to just move on. I thought it wouldn't matter." I couldn't wrap my mind around it. The lies, the manipulation, the secrecy. It felt like a betrayal in the worst possible way. And now there was a whole new layer of complexity. This wasn't just about an inheritance anymore. It was about a whole side of my mom's life that I'd never known existed. But the worst part, I wasn't sure what to do with all this information. I was caught between anger and confusion, trapped in a web that I couldn't untangle. And the more I learned, the harder it became to see my mom as the woman I thought I knew. Days passed in a haze, each one blending into the next. My mom had become a ghost in the house, avoiding eye contact, disappearing into her room for hours, and avoiding any conversation that went deeper than surface-level pleasantries. I, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about what I'd uncovered. The truth weighed heavily on me. Every time I tried to sleep, I kept hearing her words, her admissions echoing in my mind. Peter's daughter, the will, the secrecy. I kept thinking about what I should do next. What did this all mean for me, for my mom, for our future? I had no answers, only more questions, each one more impossible to ignore than the last. I couldn't let it go. I had to confront her again. It wasn't just about the will anymore. It was about everything else, the lies, the manipulation, and the future. If we didn't talk about it, nothing would change. It would keep eating away at us, and I couldn't let that happen. So I waited until one evening when the house was quiet, when she was sitting in the living room, staring at the wall like she always did now. I walked in, my heart pounding in my chest. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling with frustration. "We need to talk, all of it, the truth, everything." She didn't even look up this time. "I know," she whispered. "I know we do." And that's when I realized, the silence, the distance, it wasn't just about the will anymore. It was about everything that had been buried, all the unspoken words, the pain, the betrayal. It was all coming to a head now, and there was no going back. The conversation was harder than I ever imagined. We didn't just talk about Peter or the will or even the secrets. We talked about everything, the years of tension, the unsaid words, the things I'd always kept inside. For the first time, my mom and I really saw each other, not just as mother and daughter, but as two people who had hurt each other in ways we hadn't even realized. It wasn't an easy conversation. We both cried more than once. There were things said that we couldn't take back, but somehow it felt like a necessary step in healing. The aftermath wasn't clean. It wasn't a neat resolution, but it was progress. My mom and I agreed to seek therapy together to rebuild what had been broken, though I didn't know yet what that would look like. And as for Peter's inheritance, I don't know what will happen with that either. We're still figuring that out. The truth is, the money doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that we're finally facing the truth. But there's still a part of me that feels lost. Maybe things will never be the same, but at least, for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm living in a house full of lies. Story 2. It's time to raise a chair. In the lounge today, we have another fantastic story for you. Gourmets. You are familiar with the procedure. As usual, we're back with part 2. Get out of the kitchen today and spend time in the lounge if you can't handle the heat. First, eat and then sit down. Sometimes you can't get what you want. Is it my fault that I served 2 types of cake at her wedding? Josh, my husband, is 29 years old and I am a 27-year-old woman. We recently had our wedding a few weeks ago, and up until now, we have gotten mostly positive feedback. Many people have reportedly been smack-talking behind our backs, the cake. At first, Josh and I intended to have a smaller wedding at a resort. We decided to extend the wedding and include some of our second cousins and their children, as well as some friends we don't often see, since we were lucky enough to receive some funds to invite more people. Due to financial constraints, we chose to save the elaborate cake and cutting cake for photos, rather than the actual cake for our close relatives, the minister, and a few of the wedding party members we've known the longest. However, so they wouldn't be eating it in front of everyone else. We gave them the cake and boxes to take home. We wanted the pastor to have something to eat before it was too late, but he was unable to eat the supper because he was flying out of town and is vegan. We got a couple sheet cakes. For Josh's side of the family, who spent a lot of time in Florida. There was a sheet cake with pineapple chocolate chunks and another with vanilla and buttercream with rosettes. Speaking with relatives, we learned that several complete pineapple cake slices were left on patrons' plates, but that the staff refused to let them take them home. So we noticed you can see it in a lot of the pictures. We were having too much fun to notice at the time. We loved catching up with all of our guests. Apparently, his family did not like the cake like we thought they would, and there have been some unkind words behind our backs. We got a text from Josh's uncle that wasn't meant for us to see, and it really stung. We were unsure where to go from here and what to say. The cake did not go off like we hoped, but we think they are being unnecessarily mean. By the way, there was a full dinner, 3 kinds of cheese, even Monterey Jack available, and an open bar that didn't close until late. So I feel like we were fairly kind to our visitors on a limited budget. Let quote, S see what the community thinks about some of this. First thing, not the ale, but I'm a bit perplexed as to what Josh's family spending a lot of time in Florida has to do with opting to have a pineapple chocolate cake. I lived in Florida for over a decade, and I can tell you with a total assurance that there is zero association between Florida and pineapples. I think you're mistaking Florida with Hawaii, but beyond that, the mix of pineapple and chocolate just sounds nasty, and I think that's likely what people are speculating on. Honestly, I wouldn't worry it. Everyone will forget about it quickly. I'm sure what counts is if you love your wedding, someone else chimes in. I don't think the concerns were about you providing cheesecake, which is entirely typical at weddings. Rather about the taste combination of chocolate and pineapple. Feels like you made a random pick based on a crazy notion of what people eat in Florida. My spouse, who had resided in Florida, says so. Chocolate. Florida isn't known for pineapple. It seems like you offered the pineapple chocolate cake to Josh's family solely, rather than asking the visitors you were attempting to serve. Rather than finding out what they desired. Having 2 cakes doesn't make you a jerk, but if you didn't give your visitors a choice and then became angry when they didn't eat the cake you believed they wanted, then you definitely are. It's evident from your remarks that you chose which cake each person would receive, and that you intended them to switch plates if they weren't satisfied. You are the jerk, then. Yeah, you're the asshole, someone else says. Your pastor traveled a great way to officiate, but you failed to provide a vegan supper for him. He decided who received what and freely distributed 3 cakes, all of which were obviously of varying quality. One side of the family was serviced before the other. He believed that strangers may exchange cake tastes. Given that his family has visited Florida, you determined that the chocolate pineapple would be the ideal flavor for them. What? To be honest, you're not a good host, you're a lousy one. However, you seem to have had good intentions. However, your planning choices are unjustifiable and unfriendly. It's difficult to please everyone when it comes to flavor preferences, especially when it comes to unusual pairings like pineapple and chocolate. They are only guests who opted to RSVP. After all, it's your wedding. What are your thoughts? Will Opie the a-hole be the next to go? The tension erupts. Am I the jerk for voicing my dissatisfaction and claiming that my girlfriend believes she is more knowledgeable than chefs? I'm a 26-year-old man who lives with my 27-year-old fiancé, and we attempt to divide up the cooking and shopping chores evenly. We both enjoy cooking to a sufficient degree and subscribe to a number of recipe websites, including Epicurious and the New York Times, which occasionally include extremely inventive content. Especially when dining out isn't always feasible, and we've lately had to reduce our grocery expenditures. If we're craving something better than normal, it's good to have a few good selections. I may come out as snobby, but because our work schedules are different, we only boxed macaroni once a week. We rarely cook together, despite the fact that we both work from home. It wasn't until lately that I discovered she makes changes to almost every dish she prepares. For a long time, I suspected that she did this because whenever I made anything she had done before using the same recipe, the results were notably different. I dismiss it, though, because she has more experience than I do. Since the opportunity to cook together doesn't come around very frequently, we decided to do it together last week when I had a vet's day off on a day she always had off. I prefer to have the recipe on my tablet, and while I was getting ready, I was observing how she would frequently do things out of order or substitute ingredients without giving the recipe a second thought. I became so worried that I thought she was losing her mind. I would attempt to politely point out when she would do things like add twice as much salt or red pepper when the recipe didn't ask for it. She disregarded it, claiming that either the recipe didn't call for enough salt to make it taste delicious since they were attempting to make it appear healthy, or that we both like our meals hotter. Regarding the part on nutrition, I honestly don't see the purpose of the recipe, not because I believe her food is horrible or too salty or covering the submarines. If she's going to make things up, that is. Additionally, if she makes any alterations, there's always a danger she'll damage it and waste food. She claimed to know what we enjoy, but I became irritated and told her that the recipe was written with the ingredients it does for a reason, as if I don't. I said that neither she nor I knew any better than the trained chefs who create the recipes we employ. Of course. I always did this, she remarked, clearly annoyed. I also got mad at her once because she would make all the leftover bits after cooking into weird Frankenstein meals, she replied when I inquired what this was. She brought up the occasion when she cooked Parmesan grilled cheese and I refused to eat it, which I hardly remembered. We have nothing else, so she builds a cheese filling with tomato paste, Parmesan, and a little mayo. She said it tasted wonderful, but I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot rod. I claimed I didn't see why she couldn't follow instructions after she labeled me closed-minded and rigid. Even children can follow a recipe, yet we're still upset about it after nearly a week. Let S see how the community responds to this one. To begin with, you are aware that a recipe is not a contract, correct? The a-hole is you. Another person adds their voice. The a-hole is you. Most people cook like this. You modify the recipe to suit your preferences. It is only a guideline. Are you not a fan of her cuisine? Does it have an unpleasant taste? Are you only looking for a point of contention? I cook professionally and come up with new dishes every day, according to the next comment. The a-hole is you. Another response. What exactly is the issue you're facing? The cuisine is delicious. She's producing food so it doesn't go to waste. How do you all enjoy it? What is the source of this mindset? The a-hole is you. Op, it seems like there's a little miscommunication going on here. It's fantastic that you both like to cook and have some subscriptions to recipes. However, it appears that different techniques to cooking, rather than the food itself, are the primary problem. It's true that recipes may be viewed as recommendations rather than rigid requirements, and many individuals like to modify them to fit their personal preferences. Your partner is obviously at ease experimenting in the kitchen, and the most important thing is whether or not you both enjoy the meal. In any relationship, communication is essential. Instead than viewing this as a source of conflict, try to see it as an opportunity to connect over your disparate approaches. Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Next up. Beggars aren't able to make choices. I'm a finicky eater at Friendsgiving. Am I the bad guy? A 26-year-old woman joined a group of friends I made in graduate school who were a mix of men and women, ranging in age from 23 to 30. I began hanging out with the current group of friends in February after being bullied out of my previous one. I haven't known any of them for as long as they have. For the past few years, I've been the new arrival. Usually a week or two before to Thanksgiving, they have Friendsgiving. Each of us brings a meal or beverage to a person's home. Lisa stated she would host this year because she and her fiancé had moved into a large condo. Each of us was asked to bring something, but it didn't have to be related to Thanksgiving. The point of Thanksgiving is undermined since any dish would suffice. But whatever, I am no longer the hostess. I've always had a particular taste in food. Although I don't have any allergies or anything, I am aware of my preferences and don't want to try new meals that could upset others. We kept track of who was bringing what in a Google Doc. And I soon discovered that the only food I could eat would be apple pie and bread rolls. I was also delivering the pie. A lot of the food was foreign, since the majority of the friends are from a variety of backgrounds. Here are a few instances. Since Lisa is Chinese, she planned to prepare steamed whole fish and Chinese BBQ pork. They were going to bring hummus, parsley salad, and other food because someone else's family is Lebanese. I looked up the meals I was unfamiliar with on Google, and none of them seemed particularly tasty. To avoid starvation, I emailed Lisa to ask if I could bring her something to eat. I gave her some possibilities, such pizza, burgers, pasta with meat sauce, etc., when she asked what I was thinking, and she said she would. Everyone starts helping themselves when I go to Friendsgiving, and they say to bring me a pizza. She told me there were no other possibilities when I inquired where they were. She ordered me a pizza after I said that I enjoy pizza. Since everyone had a selection to pick from and I was effectively being forced to eat only one item, I felt that this was unjust. We argued. I don't want to provide her with a list of possibilities. As any good hostess would do, I thought she would have many different ones for me. "No, why would you give me so much food?" she said. I never talked too much for one person at a time. Nobody defended me, and a few even took Lisa's side, accusing me of being pampered. After crying, I departed early without eating anything. I brought a pie, but Lisa refused to give it back, which was needlessly cruel. I've been ignored by everyone for a few weeks now. Granted, we've all been busy as the semester draws to a close. Although I'm beginning to believe that Lisa and I didn't communicate well, I wanted to see if anybody would support me. I feel like I'm being teased for my food preferences because my friends know that I only eat a select few things. Read it. I can't concentrate on my finals since I'm so nervous and unhappy. Am I the jerk? Request a judgment. You'll get it for sure. First of all, I'm a finicky eater now. Although I'm trying to improve, posts like these remind me that I'm not nearly as awful as I could be. I'm constantly worried that I'm bothering my friends, the waitstaff, etc. The next individual adds their voice. I'm a finicky eater as well. In this case, I would either bring a main course that I could eat in bulk or eat a lot earlier and have a snack meal consisting of several side dishes because I have trouble with food textures. That's not to say that others make a special effort to help me. It seems like Miss Berger would have been more than happy with Chinese BBQ pork. However, being a fussy eater is perfectly acceptable. Bringing a food to enjoy, or at least to have a fallback option like eating in advance, could have been beneficial. In this manner, you wouldn't feel as though you were pressuring the host to satisfy your particular preferences. Although Lisa may have been more understanding in her reaction, it appears that there was a misunderstanding about what you needed from her. The stress of the semester may also be affecting everyone, which may cause people to be less understanding than normal. How do you interpret this? Opie made her husband's special night all about her the next time. Is it my fault that I didn't go to my husband's celebration dinner since there was nothing I could eat at the restaurant? After 2 years of arduous effort, my husband finally received the promotion he had been pursuing at his workplace. I am so proud of him. He wanted to commemorate his parents' second birthday by taking us all out to supper. My husband chose that restaurant because he adores prime rib and there is only one location in our neighborhood that provides it. The problem is that I don't like steak. I will occasionally eat it. I like fish or chicken. Before I left, I checked the menu and it appears to be rather little at the moment. For a variety of reasons, none of the restaurant's 2 chicken and 1 fish meals seemed very appetizing. I advised him to choose a different location so that everyone could eat. He declined, saying that although we frequently visit other locations in our neighborhood, we don't often get to come here. It's true that such locations provide a wide range of food, so everyone can find something they like. He advised me to inquire whether the fish or chicken might be prepared without marinades or sauces, but I didn't want to cause any trouble for the kitchen crew. He then proposed that I order dessert while the others were eating entree, and once we were finished, he would drive me to my preferred location so that I could have dinner while he and the children had dessert. I decided not to go because I didn't want to sit there and watch everyone else eat and enjoy themselves. In order to celebrate with the people who mean the most to him, my spouse requested me to go. I declined once more, telling him to go before he was late. He did depart, but he returned with the kids a little more than an hour later, and they were all had-to-go boxes. When the kids continued asking why I didn't attend, he stated he couldn't think of anything to say without lying or making me look awful. He just received an instruction for them to leave and allow the children to chat with their grandparents in the parking lot. He stated I put him in a horrible place with the kids and I know he wanted everyone there, so I should have simply moved past my fussy eating for one night. I told him he should have remained. I think he should have chosen a restaurant with a more accessible menu if he truly wanted us to all enjoy supper together as a family. Am I the one? A new version? Although a kick in the pants, some of these remarks were somewhat severe. I've apologized to my husband a lot, and as a first step in making amends and reversing our direction, I'm going to take him to that restaurant this weekend and get him some camping equipment he's been admiring. Let quote S now discuss a few of those remarks. You are the a-hole to start. Poor and self-centered spouse. Don't tell lies. No, it wasn't. You could not eat anything. You didn't desire anything. Additionally, you were too afraid to request a substitute from the personnel. There is just one supper. Even if you don't finish everything on the platter, you won't go hungry. It won't poison you either. Because he usually complies with your desires, your spouse is unable to go this restaurant that he enjoys. However, you are unable to handle things for him. You essentially informed your family once that your sentiments and support are not as important as my culinary choices. Your spouse was therefore forced to attempt to lie for you, which was an embarrassing situation. Because everyone would be calling you a jerk if you revealed the true reason you were unable to attend the dinner. Like, this whole thread is about apologizing and realizing that sometimes things don't turn out the way you want them to. You're the jerk, according to the next remark. Steak isn't my favorite food. I will occasionally eat it. It ought to have been one of those few occasions. Alternatively, you might have requested that the kitchen staff prepare fish or chicken without sauces, but you couldn't even bring yourself to do so. According to what I understand, you purposefully ruin your husband's celebratory supper by citing your dietary restrictions as justification. The next person calls you a jerk. You don't want to be a pain in the ass by requesting the restaurant to change their menu, but you'll fuck your spouse. A night of celebration. Sis, it's a single meal. Order a simple salad, get some water and bread, move on from yourself. One more thing to say. You're the jerk. You couldn't celebrate your husband's achievements by eating anything that didn't seem delicious. Even choosing a drink and dessert was impossible. I can't fathom not being able to give up my whole comfort level for 90 minutes in order to honor my husband's accomplishments. You could have ordered the effing chicken and handled it, or you could have eaten before or after. You have Veruca Salt's voice. Even though you may have believed that staying at home was the best decision for you, it unintentionally put your spouse in a difficult situation with the children and other family members. It's wonderful to hear that you've come to this realization and want to compensate him. An excellent first step in mending any wounded sentiments is to celebrate his advancement and provide him additional forms of encouragement. It all comes down to striking a balance between your wants and those of the people you care about. OP. Next, what would you have done? They all believe they are critics. Is it wrong of me to let our kid prepare supper once a week? I'm 35 years old, and I have a 15-year-old daughter named Rebecca. I must say that my wife and I put in a lot of work. We had money, so we hired a maid and chef to come by twice a week because we were both quite busy at work. We both understood a while back that Rebecca isn't really capable. Thus, we modified Sarah's creation. Cleans. No more washing or tidying Rebecca's room. Although Rebecca was unhappy about this, she had to learn how to take care of herself before attending college. It dawned on us both then that Rebecca is also completely incapable at cooking. All she knows how to do is reheat meals and prepare sandwiches. We agreed to have her prepare supper once a week because we truly messed up on this. Rebecca has only prepared tacos and spaghetti since it began 2 weeks ago. These meals are not challenging. I thus handed Rebecca a chicken parmesan recipe yesterday. She spent 3 hours preparing it in the kitchen. Rebecca became rather silent and replied, "Well, maybe if you actually taught me crap instead of throwing me to the wolves each time." When I mentioned that it wasn't the best, she grabbed her plate and tossed the food in the trash. She went to her room when I grounded her. When I contacted my sister, she chuckled and said, "I'm in a butt for always throwing my kids head first, and I don't even know how to cook." See what the community has to say. You are the a-hole to start. Not to shame your child for cooking, but to make her do it. When she behaved out, you grounded her after throwing her to the wolves. You were the biggest jerk. Next remark. This is the 3rd time she has ever prepared food. Additionally, you believe she will make flawless chicken parmesan. For over 2 decades, I have been preparing meals for my family and myself. F up. The recipe for chicken parmesan is not simple. Tacos and spaghetti are really simple. Before you start berating a child for attempting, make sure your own chicken parm isn't overcooked. You going to have to pay this child for therapy, so I'm relieved you seem to have money. Another brief remark. You really are the jerk. You ought to teach her and cook with her. Moreover, making fun of and insulting someone. It's pitiful to try something different. For this narrative, one final remark. For not teaching her how to cook and then being shocked when her meal wasn't the best. You're the jerk. Remarking on the food's quality, despite the fact that she obviously put a lot of work into it. when she was obviously and rightfully furious that you were criticizing the dinner she had worked so hard to prepare rather than hitting your child, you grounded her for 3 hours in the kitchen. Why don't you tell her how much you like her cooking to encourage her? Cooking beside her, accompanying her to lessons on cookery. Oh, and apologize for any impolite actions or misuse of your parental power. UN ground her. To add, edit. Did I get properly that you are basically mocking your 15-year-old for doing something that you are unable of doing yourself, and you don't even know how to cook? You're the a-hole. Extra dot. As Rebecca approaches maturity, it appears that you are working to help her become more self-reliant. Learning to cook is a process, so it's reasonable that you could find it difficult at first, particularly when making a more complicated dish like chicken parmesan. However, it seems like the method could require some refining. It was probably discouraging to criticize her work after she had been in the kitchen for 3 hours, and it didn't help that she was grounded for voicing her dissatisfaction. She could feel more like she's being set up for failure than encouraged. Recasting the event as a chance for group learning might be beneficial. In addition to enhancing her abilities, cooking together might increase your bond. Is Opie the jerk here in your opinion? Tell us what you think below. Next round, is Opie a misled gourmet or the true villain? Let's investigate. Am I the jerk? Before it becomes cold, we expect my partner to share her meal every time. I realize that asking you about this could sound like a stupid debate, but I'm sincerely interested in finding out if I'm the angel in this case. I'm 20 years old, and I've been dating my girlfriend, May 22nd, for 2 years. To begin, I would like to mention that my partner is rather petite and doesn't usually eat large meals. Seldom have I saw her finish an entire dinner by herself. In the 2 years and thousands of meals we have shared, perhaps once or twice, she isn't particularly selfish when it comes to her food, but she doesn't want to share it with me all the time, which irritates me a little because she doesn't always finish it. For instance, when we are dining out, I generally reach over and attempt to taste her meal while it is still hot and fresh. However, she occasionally smacks my hand away and tells me to wait. She believes I should at least attempt to finish her dinner before I touch it, which irritates me because I know she won't, and she knows I want my food boiling hot. As a result, there is usually an argument. Usually, if it's room temperature, I won't even eat it. She brought over a basket of 3 fried Oreos this past weekend, and I grabbed one. She became quite irritated and said, "You know, I wait for these all year round." Which is why I'm asking whether I'm the a-hole here. She was rather irritated about it for the remainder of the evening, but I wanted to eat them all, which was probably a lie. Although I'm very certain that I'm not wicked, I wanted to get the opinions of strangers in order to definitively end this argument with her. Am I the bad guy? Edit. All right. I've come to the realization that I'm not just an a-hole, but the greatest a-hole in the world after reading all of these comments. I grew raised in extreme poverty. When my meal was delicious, it was always difficult to eat it quickly, as in, when I was heated. That must have translated into my becoming an adult, and I'm currently having a terrible effect on the person I love the most. I believed that consuming her food and demonstrating to her that it was pleasurable would aid in her rehabilitation, but I was terribly mistaken based on feedback from friends and parents who had witnessed loved ones suffer from anorexia. I quote, "Am not even sure how I'll make amends with her, but I'm going to start by avoiding her food and taking care of my problems. I'll buy her all the fried Oreos she desires and take her to the fair. I appreciate you everyone pointing out how awful I was being." Its security even believes that I would have continued my conduct without realizing it until it was too late if I hadn't posted what I considered to be a pointless post over a little argument. Update. We spoke, but I believe this is the last update I will post. We had a lengthy talk after I apologized, but I don't want to go into too much detail since I don't want to reveal a private chat. She stated that I must attend treatment in order for her to continue, which I do. I'm going to take her out to dinner tonight since she appreciated the apologies. Let quote S now get some real feedback from the community. To start, you're the biggest jerk ever for not even asking what the devil? My spouse waits for me to offer, but I never finish my meals either. Or he inquires, common politeness. Why do you keep doing this when you already know it annoys her? Someone else adds something. You're the jerk. When I read this, all I could hear was that Joey doesn't share food. I'm the same. Grabbing someone's plate is quite impolite, especially if you know she doesn't want you to. Why do you believe you want her food more than she does? And one more remark saying that you're a jerk. It doesn't matter if you want your dish to be really hot. When she's finished eating, you may reheat her leftovers. She has the audacity to eat off someone else's plate despite being ordered not to. Are you a hyena or a human? Edit. You continue to take meals from her as she recovers from ed. You're the jerk. 3 times. It's rude to take her meal without asking, especially if you know it annoys her. Whatever you say, Opie, it's not just about the cuisine. It's about honoring her independence and emotions, rather than stealing her food. Think about waiting for her to offer or asking if you may taste some. Have you ever experienced this? Tell us about your experiences in the comments section below. Next up, every family has that one member who believes they are the main attraction. Am I the angel for becoming angry? It's sister-in-law. After she spoiled the dinner I prepared, Ashley, my 31-year-old sister-in-law, is, to use a polite term, annoying. She always does what she wants to do, even if you request that she refrain. Even when she is completely incorrect, she believes she is superior to everyone else. Additionally, she has the usual attitude of a babysitter, acting as though she is free to do as she pleases, and that no one can be upset with her since she is a baby. Yes, she says it on a frequent basis. Since she is the youngest member of their family, according to my spouse, her behavior is typical. However, I brought up the youngest member of my family, and I've never behaved in such a manner. Although I dislike my sister-in-law, I have remained courteous and maintained a cordial relationship for my husband's sake up to this point. My husband and I were able to see our small group of friends in person for the first time since 2019. After getting our vaccinations 2 months ago, we all made the decision to finally get together for supper. While our friends prepared snacks, provided wine, or contributed ingredients, I prepared the meal. It was challenging to make pasta ravioli by hand. I earned enough for our friend's husband and myself. However, we all caught up while I was eating the lunch. When they came. My sister-in-law arrived. She opened the door and cheerfully greeted everyone. They said hello and knew her. Abruptly, I asked her why she was here. As it happens, he told her about the event, and he surmised that she thought she was invited. She can't simply invite herself like this, so I urged him to tell her to go. He asked if she could stay, saying that it would be embarrassing for her. Despite my annoyance, I concurred. At first, everything seemed all right. After taking a few sips of wine to unwind, I was about to plate and serve everyone's dinner at the kitchen island when I realized I had forgotten the Parmesan and had to go get it. I overheard my sister-in-law offer to assist with setting the table. No thanks, I said. She was sat in the rear on this particular day, and I missed her words because of the loud clang of a pot striking the floor. I closed my eyes after hearing everyone gasp. I didn't want to look, but I knew what had occurred. I simply began bawling when I did. The floor is splattered with hours of labor. It was okay, according to my sister Dash and Dash Law. It was only spaghetti. I'll purchase more. I went crazy. I refer to her as a foolish witch. She won't listen, so it spoiled the entire evening. I told her to stop talking and go when she started doing. I sat down to weep with our friends after she rushed out in tears. Hubs attempted to reassure me that I had gone too far, but her friends informed him that her sister-in-law was at fault and that he was a jerk. We ordered pizza, and they assisted with cleaning. However, after they departed, his family called Hubs and me often, accusing me of being a spoilt brat who made their infant cry over some dumb dish. I'm weeping and feeling like a piece of trash right now. Have I gone too far? Normally, I wouldn't get that upset or swear. Am I the angel? I'm also depressed. He gets it. Although I'm sorry the food was wasted, he doesn't believe my rage was justified and was too severe. He has tomorrow off, so I informed him he would prepare the food by hand, just like I did. We'll see if he believes my reaction was uncalled for at the end. Today I was included for the first time, and everything went pretty much as I'd expected. He exuded confidence and said it would be simple. During the first half hour, however, I didn't do anything to assist him in kneading the dough because I didn't receive any assistance when I did it. And by the end of the first hour, the burn in his arms had really set in from generating enough dough for about 60 ravioli. Making the filling took an additional 40 minutes or so after the dough was finished and refrigerated. He then had to begin making the ravioli by hand when the dough was brought out. That continued for decades after the dough was rolled out, Lord, simply laying out the dough, cutting it into squares, filling them, and covering it. Rinse, and repeat until all of the filling and dough has been used. It took him just over 4 hours to complete the full operation from beginning to end on his own. Furthermore, we didn't really cook any of the ravioli. Furthermore, he didn't even prepare any sauce or boil any shrimp to serve with or in the ravioli. He didn't make a salad to accompany it either. And he nearly broke down in tears when I informed him that there was still more to accomplish. At the hour mark, he began to apologize, and he hasn't stopped since. We talked for a while about his sister and how she spoiled the evening. She has committed similar crimes on previous occasions? There are several instances where he and his family consistently allow her to get away with it. He claims he is aware of their treatment of her, that it is abnormal and that he dislikes it, but he was brought up to accept things as they are. In reference to Ashley, he stated that he would give her a call and inform her that we require some time apart from her. At this time, Ashley, S cousin, just sent the Hubs a message in which she boasted and laughed about purposefully spilling the spaghetti to discipline me for being such a snobbish witch. You all assumed she did it on purpose, but it didn't. In fact, it was something she did until she confessed to it. My spouse is more irate than I have ever seen him. I have no idea what will happen next. The last update. Hello, everyone. Since the spaghetti incident, so much has transpired that I honestly forgot about this account until this morning, when I checked and discovered that I had received several requests for an update. So here I am. This was supposed to be an adjustment of my initial post, but it turned out to be far too lengthy. I should publish it in the comments, someone said, but they're locked. I thus made my own post and included a link to it in the first one. I'm unsure of how to submit an official update on the occasion. Am I the substitute? Apologies. As I mentioned before, a lot has transpired since then. Be advised that while I make an effort to recall everything, I will just write it down as I remember it and attempt to arrange it. However, I've been doing it flawlessly for the past 4 months. It's here. Thus, the sister-in-law boasted to her and her husband's cousin Brenda that she intentionally destroyed the supper. Hubs went to face his relatives. Everything was rejected by the sister-in-law until the recording Hubs band performs. Sister-in-law from our home until she gave me a heartfelt apology and paid us back for all the food that was wasted. When the mother-in-law tried to calm her down and chastise hubby for picking some floozy above your biological family, the sister-in-law lost it and began to cry and throw a huge fit. Hubs reportedly lost it and blasted his family for their strange behavior toward his sister-in-law, accusing them of turning her into a pampered monster. Before Hubs stormed off after declaring he would no longer be speaking to them for the foreseeable future, this only sparked a heated argument amongst them all. He contacted me at that point and instructed me to block every member of his family. Before I could end the call, I began receiving a ton of calls and messages from them all, simply uttering the most horrible things to me. Hatred flooded my social media accounts, from my personal Instagram to my work email, until I was able to ban them all. But they didn't all cease for weeks. His paternal aunts and uncles, his maternal grandmother, a handful of his cousins on both sides, and his paternal grandparents were the only members of Hub's family that weren't bugging us. In fact, I believe that some, but not all of the hostility came from his maternal side. Everything was quiet when they were blocked for a few weeks. When our buddy Kelly spent the weekend at our friend's house, her car was severely damaged. I'm speaking. They cut all of the tires, keyed the signs, spray painted the windows, and even ripped out the tag and pushed it inside the driver's side door where the window slides. It was the sister-in-law and brother-in-law when we looked at the doorbell camera. They apparently thought Kelly's automobile was mine. Since my mom's car required new tires and I could borrow Hubs if necessary, I let her drive my car. My automobile and Kelly's are both black. We phoned the police again, of course. Both of them are charged by them. She claimed she was fortunate to have the video proof, which allowed her to file a no-fault claim against Ashley, who was insured, and Kelly was able to get her repairs covered. Just almost. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law. In Hub's family, getting arrested created a great divide amongst people who didn't believe their arrest was required. Some believed they received what was due to them, while the majority believed they should have simply paid for the repairs out of pocket. Additionally, the arrest lost my brother-in-law his university position. Brenda, Hub's cousin who keeps us updated, informed us that we didn't investigate it nevertheless. Brenda also told us that the maternal grandma claimed that Ashley was only their half-sister during the whole family drama incident. In any case, since mother-in-law implied that sister-in-law had done nothing to merit this treatment, she verbally abused her mother-in-law. You felt bad that your husband didn't love her because he knew she was just your shameful affair baby, Brenda said, quoting their grandmother. In some perverse attempt to make up for it, you loved her more than your other children. Additionally, you persuaded your other children to follow suit. You just succeeded in ruining a lousy one. I remember that section the most, although Brenda told us more. To be honest, I found all of that to be incredible. I was unaware that my husband's family had a history of this kind of turmoil. However, he didn't either. And it all started with a ravioli meal gone wrong. For the time being, Hubs and I have made the decision to keep our distance from that aspect of the family. We essentially wash our hands of dealing with them all after giving Kelly a copy of the film showing Sister Long, brother-in-law destroying her automobile. And lately, I've been much less stressed. We've both observed Hubs as well. Not a bad ending then. I'm not sure who will read this update, but I believe that everything is essentially finished. Therefore, I'll be signing out of this account soon. I appreciate you reading, and I want to thank everyone who left me so many nice comments following my first article. I felt much better after that. Your outburst may have been excessive, Opie. Yes, alright, so how did people respond to the totality of her actions over time? This is obviously not the first instance. When someone behaves as though their wants and needs should always come before those of others, it's annoying. Especially when you've attempted to have a civil relationship for your husband's sake. Her baby sister mindset and her belief that she can do anything she wants without taking others into consideration may be exhausting. Do you know anybody that resembles Ashley? Thank you for coming to the lounge today, and please share your thoughts in the comments section below. To ensure you don't miss our next video, please press the notification bell, like, and subscribe. Till the next occasion. Additionally, kindly return your chair to its original location.
Story 2. It's time to raise a chair. We've got another great story for today in the Aurora Lounge. Nothing says new job and a fresh start like putting a stateside restraining order between you and the family drama. Today in the lounge, Opie's sister has a more vivid imagination than a sci-fi writer on caffeine. I spent the day with my sister's best friend, and now she's telling my parents that I'm a homewrecker. So this all started yesterday when I, 22 female, had a date planned with a guy he ended up not showing, and so naturally I texted the group chat about it. My sister is in this particular group chat. I'm guessing my sister Sarah, 26 female, told her best friend Jay choice of a male about it because a few minutes later, Jay texted me to ask if I'm okay. I told him yes. Just a little disappointed since I was pretty excited to try that particular restaurant. He said that he would pick me up at noon the next day so we could go eat there. I told him it wasn't necessary, but he insisted, so I agreed, thinking nothing of it. Well, today he took me out as promised, and while we were reading, Sarah FaceTimed J. When he didn't answer, she called again and again. He answered the fourth call and asked her what was going on. She said that she was just checking up on us and told me to call her later. Later ended up being almost 8. Jay and I ended up spending the rest of the day together hunting down some collectible dolls we both like and trying different dessert spots along the way. On the way back to my apartment, Jay asked me to change the music on his phone. When I opened it, I saw that my sister had called him about 30 times throughout the day and texted him across multiple different apps. Jay put his phone on Do Not Disturb after lunch, so it made sense why he didn't see all those notifications. Once he dropped me off, I called my sister and asked her if everything was all right. She said yes and asked if I had forgotten to call her back sooner. I told her that I was out with Jay, so I didn't get the chance, and figured it could wait since she didn't call me. She hung up, and a few minutes later I got a call from my mom. She sounded angry and told me that I should be ashamed of myself. I said sure, but why today? According to my mom, Sarah called her in tears, saying that she had caught Jay and I having sex in her apartment. I'm so confused. I told my mom that I did not, in fact, have sex with Jay, and then I didn't even know where they lived together. I asked her to give me a minute, and I called Jay, but he didn't answer. So now I'm here, laying on my floor, wondering what the hell is going on and putting off another conversation with my mom. Let's get some relevant comments from the community. Let's start. So your sister thinks she is in a romantic relationship with her best friend, Dot. Her best friend does not have feelings for her and doesn't even know he is in a relationship with your sister. Oh boy, you got yourself a delusional sister. Best of luck with that one. OP replies. This is pretty on brand for her, so I'm used to it. He isn't, though. The next person says, wait a minute, are your sister and Jay dating, or are they strictly friends with no benefits? 30 missed calls and an unknown amount of texts over the course of a few hours. It's crazy to lie to your mom about something that never happened is delusional. Follow up with Jay to make sure he's okay. Your behavior is quite disturbing and borderline obsessive, the AP replies. Yep, strictly friends. Jay, call me back. He's fine, but he's not staying in his place tonight. The AP responds on not knowing her sister had a roommate, but it's not Jay. I'm not really sure how to make this clearer, which is bad because I'm a teacher. I knew my sister had a roommate that wasn't Jay. That's why when my mom said their apartment, I told her that I didn't know they lived together. As for him having my number, he's my friend too, Dot. Of course he has my number. I'm glad you don't take everything at face value. You're doing better than my parents. Also, I know I'm horrible at expressing things, much more so when I'm worried, so I don't mind clarifying. It quote, "S astonishing how Sarah managed to invent a whole love drama in her imagination and then summon the whole family to report on a fictitious scandal. Maybe she should consider writing books. She certainly has a gift for fiction. In the meantime, Jay deserves a medal for his phone's perseverance through those 30 missed calls. Update number 1 3 days later. So I'm not religious or anything like that, but Jesus Christ. Thank you everyone for your warm words and support. I don't know what to do with myself. Also, I planned to post an update yesterday, but my buddy invited me to go watch the Michael O'Hara movie with her, and then I just forgot. Sorry about that. I wanted to clear up any misconceptions before the update on my initial post. When my mom told me that Sarah and Jay shared an apartment. I claimed to be unaware that they shared a residence. Those are my precise comments to her because last I heard, Sarah had a roommate and Jay lived alone. I was right. That remains the case. I apologize for not being explicit about that. Sometimes I have trouble expressing myself. People were also curious as to how Jay learned about my date, or lack thereof. And he claims that as he was chatting with several of his friends, including my sister, she casually mentioned it to him. In addition, some people are questioning why, given that I knew my sister liked Jay, I went out with him. I had no idea. My sister doesn't necessarily talk to me the same way just because I spoke to her. I know from experience that my sister is a jealous person, so if I had known, I would have discussed it with her beforehand. In any case, yesterday night was amazing. Jay gave me a call back. He said that because he would feel safer with company, he would be staying at a friend's house. I asked him if he and my sister had ever had a romantic relationship. He said that the only problem was that since she felt excluded, he kissed her at midnight during a New Year's celebration. Of course, I am unable to verify whether it is the sole thing. He said that he didn't even discuss living with Sarah, so he's not sure why she would claim that they were living together. I contacted my mother once more after talking to J. She still sounds like a pinch, but this time I can hear my dad shouting for us to get over here and my sister sobbing in the background. Presumably we're Jay and me. As I had informed my mother, I did not possess Jays. Additionally, I disliked driving at night. I informed them that I would go the next morning. I also had more time to collect any proof I could to establish my innocence. In order to demonstrate that he and Sarah do not share a residence, Jay even forwarded me a copy of his lease. Jay works, so I visited my folks by myself. My parents began screaming at me as soon as I got there. They never anticipated this from me. Only the typical insulting things I did. To you and your sister, how dare you? You are aware that she is already struggling. Why complicate her life? I was even dubbed a whore by my father. It was enjoyable. I sat there and calculated how much quicker I could complete my graduate program and leave the country, or at least a state. I didn't pay much attention until my mother informed me that I would have to provide for Sarah until she got another job if I caused her to lose hers. At that point, I lost my temper and informed them that if they believed I would do that, they were as naive as my sister who missed a day of work due to a tantrum over a non-existent incident. Would I cause her to lose her job? Sarah had been skipping work, according to my dad, to make sure Jay wasn't leaving early to visit me. I discovered that they had been giving her rent money for months after my sister informed them that Jay was missing a lot of work and wasn't taking home enough to pay the expenses. I informed them that this was untrue and showed them the lease adjacent, which prominently displays the date the lease began and its expiration date, along with his address, which differs from Sarah's. After bringing Sarah out of the room where she had presumably been all along, Mama demanded an explanation from her. According to Sarah, he most likely moved into that other apartment to be nearer to me on his alleged business trips. Jay is a software developer to start. I'm not sure what kind of business travels he would take. Second, since Jay's flat is about an hour distant from mine, I discovered that my sister is unaware of my residence. My parents began to trust me once I showed them that on Google Maps. Sarah broke down in tears and accused me of lying. Even if what I said was accurate, my father told me that I shouldn't have been so harsh with Sarah and that, as her sister, I should be supporting her at difficult times like this. I informed him that although I was not a therapist, I would assist her if she ever made the decision to seek treatment. Then I went out. I didn't have anything else to say, and waiting for an apology seemed pointless. My father seemed uneasy. My mother didn't see me leave since she was too busy comforting my sister. Since then, I haven't spoken to them. If you were hoping for a phone update in which I exacted revenge on my sister or whatever, I apologize. Petty and insane. I quote, LL probably respond if you have any queries. However, I appreciate your concern. And those of you who responded to my initial post with your own tales. I'm very sorry I had to go through that. Let quote, S now get more feedback from the community. Is your father really not sorry for calling you a whore? I'm sorry that simply by hanging out, you and Jay are having to deal with this. It looks like your family is terrible. I hope you conveyed that to Jay. However, it appears that she is pursuing him. The OP answered. After everything, I told you everything. He said that he would attempt to obtain a restraining order. Another person adds their voice. Did you realize your sister was the star kid from the beginning? Did you prepare your proof for that reason? You were so ready for self-defense. You've done it a lot, it appears. Edit. Furthermore, your parents don't care about the person who began harassing a man outside of his house. Has there ever been any repercussions for your sister? The sole response is, I'm not accustomed to being taken seriously. Thus, yes, that is why I was ready. I have no idea what's going on with my parents at the moment. Since then, I have not spoken to them. My sister's collision with the family automobile was the only instance in which I witnessed my parents get upset with her. She has, therefore, experienced at least one consequence. It is possible that your sister is trying out for the part of the obsessive character who mixes reality with her own twisted dreams in the next psychological thriller. Well done for making it through that ridiculous marathon. Your father is calling you a lovely whore. He is obviously not fulfilling his potential as a motivating speaker. Additionally, your mother was so engrossed in Sarah's crocodile tears that she failed to notice you leaving the house. That quote, S family of the year material. However, you were well prepared. Bringing evidence into a knife fight was akin to bringing a nuclear weapon. Hard truths and Sarah's response. Traditional. She has advanced to the CSI fictitious crimes section, the top tier of investigative work, with her delusions. And good for Jay for attempting to obtain a restraining order. The man's desire for calm is understandable. Perhaps advise him to get a new phone plan that includes limitless do not disturb mode. A year later, update 2. I'm not sure how to begin, but after everyone sent me an update, I felt compelled to write one. So much support and love. When I logged back in, I noticed a few questions I had seen when writing. I'll start by responding to those. My sister was subject to a permanent restraining order against Jay. He now has that after several months, and much more harassment. I couldn't tell you why my sister was lying to her parents to get money. I'm fairly certain that she lied in order to avoid disappointing them, but I'm not sure where all the money was going. In summary, my sister broke into my house and violated the restraining order, which led to her arrest. When I failed to save her, my parents were very upset with me. She's had 3 jobs since my last post, and they blame me for her arrest and termination. I haven't spoken to either my mother or my sister since. I only got a call from my dad saying Happy New Year. In addition, I completed my master's degree, and after numerous job applications and rejections, I was able to secure employment in my field. One big plus is that it's far from where I currently reside. I'm thrilled to begin this new chapter in my life, even though I'm sad to be leaving my friends. Overall, I believe my mental state has improved significantly since I started writing my post. I believe that my plan to use writing as a journaling tool didn't really work out. I therefore discovered various ways to communicate and think about my emotions and circumstances. I believe I will continue to use my account, but most likely only for insignificant purposes that should receive little attention. It's classic when your parents blame you for getting arrested. You have the audacity to ignore your sister's developing criminal career. The next thing you know, you'll be accused of failing to assist her in her plans to break into the jail. Your dad at least managed to wish you a Happy New Year despite his reluctance. On the plus side, perhaps he'll work up to a full sentence next year. Congratulations, Major, on completing your master's degree and finding employment in your field. Relocating is undoubtedly advantageous. Reduced likelihood of sporadic home invasions by siblings who are estranged. Do you have a comparable tale? Tell us in the comments section below. We're also sorry if you do. We appreciate your presence in New Orleans today. To ensure you don't miss our next video, please press the notification bell, like, and subscribe. LL. See you shortly. Additionally, remember to return your chair to its original location.